What is going on, Comic Fam? It's your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and I am joined by comic creator Lee Lowridge. Welcome to the show.
What's up? I got my baby beard.
Listen, yeah, if you're coming on the show, you got to have a beard. It's a requirement, apparently. So,
Well, I glued mine on this morning. It's all pubic hair that I glued to my face. I
perfect.
just got it from my bathroom floor because my bathroom floor looks like the Florida Turkish prison.
The more you know, gang, the more you
Yes,
know. So,
we're gonna come in hot right from the
hey,
beginning.
at least people know what they're getting into. That's all we care about. So, well,
Yeah, if
if
you're
people
sensitive.
are if people aren't familiar with your work, you are one of the best colorists in the game. We talked about all these works that are behind me. Worked on Gotham Central, Deadly Class, uh, stuff with one hand, six fingers, current stuff with Scarlet in the GI Joe Energon verse and Flash Gordon. But you're not just a colorist. You are a writer as well, and you've done stuff like Midstate. You've got a new book coming out called Stand Still. And man, I'm so excited to just talk to you about comics.
I'm here for it.
I kind of always like to know when I bring on a guest, did you always have a love for comics growing up, or was this something that kind of came in later in life?
No, I had no love. I was more into like heavy metal magazine, Mad Magazine. I collected like wacky packages. They like predated Garbage Pail Kids.
Okay.
It's what Garbage Pail Cop, So I always liked that kind of like alt art,
Yeah.
like all alternative stuff. And then, but it never really comics, but I was definitely adjacent. But
Okay.
also none of my friends read them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's sort of
Yeah.
like a product of your environment. So I found them in I went to art school, and that's where I found comics. They just started a program. I went to SCAD in Savannah, and then
Okay.
I guess like early '90s. I really, people will hate me this, like I really didn't care for the older art, the golden age art stuff in the '80s. A lot
Yeah.
of it was just, I mean, it just, from an outsider, it looked kind of shitty. And but then Spawn hit in the early '90s, and my buddy told me about that, and I went to the shop, and I was like, oh shit, like they're starting to care,
Yeah.
especially like, and I'm not even talking about just color, but like the color in Spawn was like groundbreaking. Like Olaf totally changed the game. So I think production wise and just quality wise, it went fucking haywire, after Olaf got his hands on it.
Yeah.
So that's when I was like, all right, I think I'm down.
So you started to then, you started to get into comics a little bit of picking them up. Where was it then for you to have that kind of transition though to start to create, be a creator in comics?
I mean, I wanted to work in comics, so I was just trying to figure out what I could pull off. You know
Okay.
what I mean? Like I was you know, I was a pretty decent artist, um, but I knew penciling would take too long. It would just be, I knew I needed a decade to get pretty good, and maybe to get to a pace. But I had a baby in college because that's how I roll, and I don't waste it. And I was like, I have to get a job now. So I thought inking, like I was a good inker,
Yeah.
uh, but it turns out I'm really slow. um, and so then color, I was really into graffiti, so I had all these marker sketchbooks. So I was really good with that stuff. And back then, you did everything by hand. So I gave that a shot, and then um, submitted to Marvel for a few years, and they just rejection, 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 rejection. But I wanted to work in comics, and as I kept doing all these samples, I fell in love with comics, and I was in. It
Yeah.
was every day at the shop. I didn't have money to buy the books, but I just didn't read them all. The guys there were like, I said, I'm gonna do this. They're like, sure you are, bud. You know,
Okay.
uh, so that's sort of where that all
Yeah.
started. And I got Mark Torello gave me some color work, and then that's kind of where it went. I just jumped in head first. But what's odd about it, especially in the 90s when I got in, where the job you got was the job you kept.
Mm.
So if like you're a letterer, you are only looked at a letterer for the rest of your life. If you're an inker, don't try to pencil. God forbid, don't try to write. Like you get pigeonholed. Even
Yeah.
at DC Comics, when I started working for Vertigo, they were like, "Oh yeah, he's a Vertigo guy. No more DCU." Or when I was a DCU guy, they were like, "No, he's not Vertigo. He's DCU." Like it's really interesting. It's really hard to break out of any mold, at least in the 90s, and I'd say the early 2000s.
Oh,
When especially when indie stuff wasn't as well received. It didn't sell very well, so it wasn't really an avenue to have a career. Not back then.
yeah.
There
And
was the
so,
audience.
and so you then, you kind of, you found your niche in coloring, and you kind of stayed in coloring then, like you said, you didn't, break out of your mold too much then, until you started writing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think I'd always written stuff, but I never really cared to write superheroes. It just doesn't interest me. I'm not saying that I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would do with Batman or something like that. You know what I mean? It's just like I would rather write my own stuff based on things that happen in my life, or someone else, some other fucked up friend of mine's life. Um, it's just what I'm more interested in. You know what I mean? Like it's if I sit down to write, I don't. For me, it's a blast. I love doing it. So I want to write stuff that cracks me up and stories I want to tell, and just give that angle. But I'd always written stuff. Um, I guess I was always I'm tight with Rick Remender, and watching him starting Deadly Class and all that. We would brainstorm on that every day. We'd go on these bike rides and just talk about stuff. But I even at that point I had no interest in writing,
Mm.
so to speak. But then after a few years, I thought, oh, I need to sit my ass down, and start doing my own shit. Because everybody says like I've got a great idea. Like you probably don't. You probably have a great moment. You know what I mean? You have a
Yeah.
great moment in the story, but you don't have a fucking idea. And if you do, you don't have shit till you write it down. Like just sit down and do it. So once I sat down, it was like a fucking addiction. I mean, I have I think 8 full series written. Yeah, like done. So um so dead sorry, Standstill. I mean, I wrote Standstill 9 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but I'm glad I did, because I've rewritten the shit out of it, and
Okay.
it's a lot better. I mean, I had so many drafts. I mean, I brought a first draft of that to Rick, and he was like, "No, you got to change that. Make Riker. It's all about Riker. It's all about the guy that would do the most horrific things with this power." Because I wanted this moralistic view,
Yeah.
this other viewpoint. He's like, "No one's interested in that," and I'm like, "Okay, you're right." And he goes, "He's got to be you. He's got to be sarcastic and antagonizing." And so that was super helpful,
Yeah.
back then. And then even up until now, it stalled for a long time. Andrew just couldn't get through the pages, and because he's such a perfectionist. And so Rick pumped new life into this, and then noted it up even more. We just tied some things together, and even in the first issue, added a few new scenes just to give a little more context. And it was nice to have the time, because since I wrote the first like 4 issues of Standstill, I've written like 60 more comics. So I think I've gotten better. You know what I mean? So there's a
Yeah.
lot of it's nice, and I like to write them way out, because like if you have some idea and then you go back to it a year later, you're like, holy shit, that's bad. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
there's a lot. It's like it's so much easier fixing other people's stuff or editing. And what's nice is when you go back to your own stuff and you can edit it, a year after you've written it. So I like having that time, with all the projects I have coming up. They're all old. I mean, I've written most of them during COVID, but I like having I feel like I get the hard work out of the way because dialogue for me is easy. So
Yeah.
that's the easiest thing to fix. The story and like getting it down and directing everything is, it's a bit of, it's work,
Yeah.
and having it all make sense and pulling up all the nets in the end. And I like a crazy ending. I like to make you think you got it figured out, and then you don't. And then I
Which
like to flip it twice.
you do. And and I say that from uh reading Mid-State. Like I was like, okay, I think, oh no, okay. I think I know. Oh no.
Oh
And
yeah,
so I'm
Mid-State was,
expecting that with Standstill.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I stand still. I had the last 4 issues written, and then Remender was like, "Nope, you got to rewrite them. Nope, you got to do something different. It's got to be bigger." He wanted a bigger action kind of moment for it. That was his suggestion, and so I had the old 4, and then I go, all right, I'll rewrite this 4 issue kind of arc that ends it, sort of, and I was like, I'll see what I like better, and it's tough because I still like the old one, but I think the new one is better. It's cleaner,
Yeah.
but it's different. It's a
That's
lot different.
I mean, when you got Remender chipping in on advice, you sometimes like, do I take it?
Yeah, I mean, and I do take it to heart. Because when you write something or you have an idea and someone asks you to change it, it's hard. Like it's hard for your ego to let go of that.
Mm,
I think my last ending was really good, but it might have drawn on a bit.
yeah.
It might have been a bit much, and there's a little more heart in the ending of this, and there's a little more fuckery in the end of this.
So
you know,
good.
we find out who Riker really is, and he's a goddamn disaster.
Well, we've talked about Standstill a little bit already here. If someone hasn't checked out the comic yet, what's your elevator pitch for Standstill?
I would say it's a story about a sociopath who's on a redemption tour, who has a device that he's stolen that gives him the ability to stop time at will. How's that? And then there's
Perfect.
the scientist that created the device is hunting him down. He wants his device back, as well as the government has caught wind that this device is out in the market and they want it for themselves. And they'll use it for worse things than Riker. He's just trying to avenge a few things. And then does he get off task? Sure, but who the fuck wouldn't?
Right. When you have that device. Oh, well, one of the things that I did love about, you mentioned Andrew artwork on this already. It feels so cinematic, with the layouts of the page. Like you go from like these big double page spreads to almost like there's 3 in a row sometimes of double page spreads. Like, was that more Andrew's art choice, or was that a little bit of conversation between you both of kind of how you wanted the layout and feel and flow of the story?
Yeah, I wanted to do the book landscape from the start.
Okay.
I think it's just a better read. That's how we watch movies. That's how we watch television. I wanted it landscape. I begged Eric Image to let us do it. He said okay. Some years went by. Some of their other landscape floppies didn't do well, and he was like, "We gotta figure something out." So Andrew and I talked, and we thought, well, why don't we just make the art a little bigger? We'll blow it up 15% and just do all double page spreads.
Mm.
That way in the floppies you get twice the volume. It's a bit bigger because we didn't want to chop his art up, or it was just it had to be that way. And I think it came out great. So I had to kind of manipulate the art a bit here and there to make it work properly. But the idea is we'll do the 8 issues all double page spreads, and then when we're going to do a collected hardcover that will be its actual landscape format.
Oh
So
wow.
you'll get these 22-inch double page spreads, and it'll be read how it was originally intended. So that's like the bonus.
That's so cool. That's
Yeah.
already as like a collector, like that. I can just picture it's gonna look great on the shelf. But then like the experience, I think is, like you said, it's the original intent that you wanted for the book to read like, which I think is an important aspect.
Yeah, and I think, I was nervous about, how it would print and how the gutters would fall and everything, and I'm super happy with it. Like issue one printed perfect. I
Yeah.
mean, you don't stumble at all, but I always try to make it clear in the solicits. It's, like next issue two will be 48 double page, or double page spreads, or 48 pages of double page spreads, just to let the reader know you've got to read this across the wall.
Yeah. Which it is helpful, I think, as someone's picking it up because it doesn't necessarily read like you are used to, but like you said, if it's reading like it's almost in landscape, it's just in these double page spreads. So
Yeah, yeah, because I don't want people to get confused, but you won't be. I mean,
no, it
I think it's pretty seamless. So you open it, you go, oh shit, it's doubles.
yeah.
So
And I remember, picking up issue one here and seeing the way it was just laid out, and I'm like, this looks so good. And would you start right off the bat with a biker bar, and like you said, you got the sarcastic personality in there, and I'm just like, okay, I'm here for it.
yeah, yeah, he's there to start some shit.
But
I
I mean,
mean,
it. Go ahead.
I love cold opens. I love
Yeah.
cold opens in I do it in almost every issue I write. I like to give you, 4 to 6 pages to, punch you in the face, wake you up, and then, get things moving. I love that in film. I
Yeah.
love watching a movie and, they have a great cold open. I'm like, oh, I pause it, I go get ice cream, I'm like, I'm in. You got me. And then
You're,
hopefully they could, keep it going.
yeah.
So, because it is this it I didn't also want it to become, it is a bit of a gimmick, right? When he stops time, like how many things are we going to do? Like I definitely didn't want to play that out either. So it was tough to pick and choose, what we wanted to do, because there's so many fucking things you could do. So I always look at it, this is just an example of a moment in time where if someone had this ability, this specific person, this is an example of things you could do. Some people might be pretty boring with it.
Do
But
you have a list? Did you have a list when you're writing this of like, oh, I would do this, or if someone wronged you when you're out in the street, you're like, I'm adding this to the list. I'd stop right here.
oh yeah, it's everything I want to talk shit on. I have him do it. I definitely wanted to talk some shit on the bikers. That's fun for me. But that you'll find, that was the other thing. I have these scenes, and this is something. It was one of Rick's suggestions. We ended up tying them. They all tie together. There's a reason for most of it.
Yeah.
But like, if you had that ability, something we talked about, like eventually you'd get apathetic. It just gets boring. You know what I mean? Like, and then
Yeah.
you're just stopping and starting it at all times. Like, it just becomes this seamless thing. And we have a scene in issue three, and it's not really a spoiler, but it's just an example of him walking down the street. Guy's eating croissant. Now Riker's eating the croissant. Guy's got a hat. Riker's got the hat. Like, it's just, he just takes what he wants. You don't need money. You don't need anything. You just
Yeah.
take what you want at will, and just stopping and starting and stopping and starting. And, you know, you don't need a house. Just stop time and stay in the house. You know what I mean? You don't need money.
That's These are things I have not thought about. And I'm going, wow, that's crazy. You're right.
Yeah, you don't, because that's the thing. Like everyone's like, I'd rob a bank. You don't need money. You know, uh, why do you need money? You can go take what you want. You can literally do, exist any do whatever you can do anything. It's like
Yeah.
it's the God power.
It's That's fascinating because you're right. I think if you're like, oh, what would you? You're like, oh, I'd rob a bank and I have all this money, but like you said, you don't need it. You can do whatever you want. I guess if you've been living with this story for 9 years, you kind of flesh it out even more, and like you've been able to think about this and have these ideas running for a while.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like I have like all these notes for the story, tons of potential ideas we could have done, and then but then I'll come at it from the other way of I'll try to debunk it.
Yeah.
Does that seem, I just try to pick the best moments to give you a little taste, give the reader something like, that's what I do. That's awesome. That's, I want you to love Riker, but then he does horrible things. So like, he is an anti-hero. He's the main guy,
Yeah.
Uh, he'll do things you love. He does have a heart, but he's broken. And he does some fucked up shit. He doesn't really have a barometer, I guess a moralistic barometer. So he's
And
off
this
the
is,
rail.
yeah, and this is 8 issues. So did you, like, when you kind of crafted this story, did you know right off the get-go like how you wanted it to wrap up, and you're like, hey, I'm telling this 8 page, 8 issue story? Or did the 8 issues kind of come out a little bit more once you figured out the layout of formatting and things like that? Because I know you said you wanted it in a different format originally.
Initially, I thought 12, but it was just to do like 2 6-issue trades. And then
Okay.
12 was just too much. So then I thought, well, maybe we'll do just 10 because I don't want to draw it. I don't want to drag it out. There's definitely an issue in this book that there is a bit of exposition. Um, we do get our moment with Riker and Colin. There's a lot in that scene, but there's not a lot of action. But I don't want to bore anybody with that. But it is the moment you've waited for.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't want too many of those. You know what I mean? I don't want to lose you. I want to keep you, engaged, and that's what's tough when you're writing like this many issues. I just don't want to have anyone go, like when you watch TV and episode's boring and you're like, I don't want anyone to be bored at any second, but I want to get enough story out, give you enough context, and have you, you know, just keep you engaged. But it's a tough balance. So yeah, then 8, then we decided not to do trades. We'll just do 8, and then because 8's the minimum. It's 4 issues to get to this big moment, and then it's 4 issues to pretty much get to the ending.
Yeah.
So I think the pacing's good.
Good. Well, like I said, I instantly reached out after issue 1 because I'm like, I've got to talk to you because this is, I loved it. I'm excited for where else you're going with it. Have you know I'd be remiss though too if didn't talk to you a little bit about your work as a colorist, because I see your name on books all the time.
Yeah,
You are one of the best colorists in the game, in my mind.
maybe I just do the most work.
Well, but if I'm reading it, that means I like the book most of the time. If it's on the shelf, that means I like it. So
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have I mean, it's funny because standstill is not normally like how I color stuff. I mean, I prefer like Deadly Class. I
okay.
prefer flat, simple, just real palette driven kind of scenes. But like with Andrew, I just follow the art. I don't want to disturb his art. I think that's kind of the key, is not to step on the art in any way, shape, or form. I really don't like flashy stuff, but I tend to, I'm doing stuff that's a little flashier these days, um, but I enjoy it. But I enjoy the more simplistic stuff,
Yeah.
But yeah, I've done a shit ton. So, you spend all those years reading all those scripts and working on all those books. We all do it. We're like, that sucks. I could do better. And it's like, well, then do it.
Yeah.
Do it. So that was sort of how this was. I was like, all right, I'm gonna start putting out books and put my money where my sarcastic, you know, mouth is, and see what I can pull off.
Yeah.
So,
Do you
but it's fun.
I know you said you've had this itch for writing for such a long time. And as a colorist, when you got in, you said you kind of felt like you stay in the lane of staying in a colorist. That's what you're known as. Do you find yourself, now that you're getting these stories written and you're still coloring, but like, do you find that you gravitate towards one more than the other?
Like writing to me is like a night out at the bar. Like I
Yeah.
write at night, I pour a drink. That it's like I'm hanging out with an old friend. You know, creating the dialogue and these things, and you kind of get in your own world. Like I love it. It's like dream state fun time, and it has nothing to do with color. The colors work, like not work, but that's what I do. That's my daytime thing. And then the writing, like I really look forward to writing. So it's like I haven't. I just finished the last issue of this probably 2 months ago. Um, I have another thing I want to start on, but I kind of want to stay with this.
Yeah.
Like I'm never going to overlap books. Like I finished Mid State in March, Was it, or April? Oh no,
Uh,
maybe no, it was June. Was it June?
it was. I'm trying to remember because I read it on Comixology. But
Yeah, but it was this summer. I think I had a month off, and then Standstill came out. So that was the whole thing. So when Standstill's done, I have another series that's done, like it's drawn, colored, everything. Um, that I'm gonna attempt to do at Image as well. I haven't asked Eric, but I'm going to. But that's ready. That's 6 issues and ready to go. But I might double it up. I might do 3 issues, just a 3 act, you know, three 50-page issues, something like
yeah,
that. That could be cool.
I'm excited because again, like I said, you probably it didn't probably hurt that being on these so many books that you were coloring that you like you said you got to see a great creator's writing and stuff like that, but you also
Right.
probably got to see what works and what doesn't work in a comic
For
book too.
for sure. Even down to like formatting a script so it's easy to read. You know, some guys, their scripts are so confusing to read. It's crazy. So yeah, I even went down to that. What's the simplest way to like format a script so it's easy? What's the best way to write it? Uh, it, yeah, it's definitely helpful, and it's helpful. Like I have so many friends in the business. I mean, I've been doing this over 30 years, so like getting my variants. I'm just cashing in my friend cards
Right,
for these
you're like,
variants.
hey, you remember that?
Oh yeah, no, it's like me going, dude, you have to do this cover. Like you fucking owe me, do this cover. Or like bartering, I told Jason Alexander to do a cover for issue 3. And I'm like, I'll do 10 of your covers. Like give me a cover, I'll do 10 of yours. Like it's good to have the bartering, and
Yeah.
I'm glad I have a hand in the art too, because like, fiscally it helps me, so I get to start it and I get to finish it, and it definitely saves money budget wise and stuff. So it's helpful.
So when you get, you talked about scripting and you get these scripts. So like as a colorist, when you get the art, is it that it's just nothing's on the page? So like, how do you kind of decide, besides obviously the art, how do you decide like where you're going with coloring? Do you get, a lot of script notes from that, or is it just kind of from the artists and stuff? Or is it just mostly they trust you to do what you do because you've done it so much?
Yeah, I think they know what they're getting,
Okay.
if they want me to do it. And then also I always want them to call out, just give me times of day.
Okay.
Is it dusk, dawn, sunset, gloomy, rainy? That's all I want to know. And then emotion, I'll go in and, if it's getting emotional or it's getting, a fight breaks out, I'll brighten things up or do something crazy. Um, it's just like Torello used to say, like storytelling through the use of color. I like an issue when it's pretty drab the whole way, and then you have that moment and it fucking knocks your socks off. Like I'm down with that. It's interesting, on my own book so far, I've done pretty traditional color.
Yeah.
Like I haven't tried anything wacky yet. So like I basically have 3 series done, and they're all really traditional. So I'm like, I have this other book I want to do that I think I'm going to do something a little more off the wall color wise, but it's odd. Like I want to do it on other people, but not my own.
You're like, well, we'll try it, but just not here.
Yeah, yeah. I guess because my stories are pretty literal, so you know they're sort of based in reality.
How do you get a chance? I know like you're getting scripts and stuff, and then you're not seeing books when they're lettered. Like, are there stuff that like once you see scripts that like you're like, I want to go back and actually read this comic that has come out then that you've worked on, or can you not do that as someone who like it's work because I've already seen parts of this and stuff, or do you like to go and see the finished product on some stuff?
Yeah, I always want to, like, I'll always flip through the book when I get it, just
Okay.
to make sure the printing was okay. And I'm a real stickler for pre-press because that's what I've done my whole life. And even on Standstill, I was panicked because I used an untested letterer, Rob Tweedy. He's a great designer,
Yeah.
but like he's never done a comic. So I was real strict about like our tolerances and ink densities and all this stuff, where mine is dialed. I wasn't sure his were dialed in. So I made Image do tests, like pre-press tests on everything, just to make sure we were in sync. Because I can't have a book come out that's printed wrong. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
that would be the worst thing ever. But that's what people don't think about. Back in the day, I would handle the lettering. Like the lettering came to the colorists and we would assemble it. So
Okay.
we got to take care of all that. So, but now the letters in the industry, they're essentially doing the pre-press. They make sure everything is perfect for print. And then you got to pick your paper, you got to pick your coatings, you got to pick your cover stock, your thicknesses. So it's like this, it's this guess, but kind of based on what we've done in the past. But I was super happy with how Standstill printed. It's just those little things that will make you fucking crazy, until it comes out. Like I was panicked and I didn't get my issues. I was on the East Coast. I went to Third Eye Comics to do a signing
Okay.
when it came out. So I didn't get my comps before. And then Rob, the letterer, got the comics. And I said, how did they come? He's like, they're perfect. And I was like, well, I'll tell you if they're perfect, And I thought it printed great. I'm super happy with it. Yeah, there's all these facets, but so yeah, being a colorist forever, like it's super helpful. Like I know how to do this stuff. I know how to lay out all this stuff. I know how to build these files. And if you don't know how to do that, it's tough. And even having to reformat this 4 double-page spreads, I did that. I could reformat an entire issue in an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. So if I didn't have that, skill set, that would be tough, and I got to find someone to do that. I got to pay them, so I'm not too worried. And I fix art, I change shit. If somebody looks a little stout, I stretch it a little bit, or, I could, too many lines. If the character's looking a little old, I'll get rid of it. I take liberties, but, not so much with Andrews because he's a fucking genius.
It's brilliant. I mean, if you're listening or watching this, and you haven't picked up this book, fix that. But then you're just gonna look at the art and be stunned too. Like it is. I'm flipping through it right now, just looking at it and going, it's gorgeous. So how did you decide like that Andrew was the right fit for your book? Because like you said, you're a perfectionist. You wanted everything. You want things right. So how did you land on having Andrew be a part of this project?
He was the first one I asked. We went to art school together, so I've known Andrew forever. So I gave him the script at San Diego Comic-Con, and I said, you have to draw this. And he read it, and then we went out later that night, and he goes, dude, I'm in. It's fucking, I love this. This is fucking perfect. Because Andrew loves to ruffle feathers. He can be a bit mouthy, and so he could definitely handle. I mean, there were certain scenes there was one scene, and I'm not going to spoil it, where he was like, I can't do that. And I'm like, you did that opening scene, and now you don't want to do this scene? I go, where are your limits? I go, come on. But yeah, luckily he said yes. So that was it. It's just, it took him forever. So,
Yeah.
That's that.
I mean, I get it. Cause like you said, each issue is a double-sized issue that you're practically getting.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of art.
Yeah. And we're actually, the team will change at issue 5.
Okay.
We have Alex Regal will come on issue 5. So it's interesting because Alex is a little grittier. Like the only weird thing I've heard about Standstill is like, why are all the characters so handsome? Well, we're gonna fix that. I say, like, Andrew draws everyone, they're all supermodels, and Alex makes them look, I go, like, Andrew makes them all like Los Angeles Nines, and then Alex makes them look like Ohio Nines.
I should take offense to that being from Ohio, but I don't.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you've seen Andrew's art, everybody's big jawed, and like, it's, but Alex's stuff is really great. So that was the kind of the plan all along, was to have have different team each arc. It's the only way, like, logistically you could do it. Time wise, it's just a lot. It's a lot of issues. It's tough to keep it on track.
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, Lee, I want to respect your time. I feel like we could talk forever, but uh, is there other stuff that that you're working on that you haven't gotten a chance to mention, or is it all stand still right now at this moment?
Yeah, I think that's kind of my play. Like
Yeah.
I'm all about standstill till I think we're trying to get the hardcover out in April. So that'll be the really the only thing I'm gonna promote. I mean, obviously, if you like this, like Mid-State, I think is a much tamer story.
Mhm.
Uh, I think it's an easier story. Uh, people will like that. I'm hope that trade, the digital trade, comes out. I think October 1st. I'm trying to get that out in print. The goal is to have that out in print, like early next year.
Okay.
Um, and then yeah, once Standstill ends, I have this book, Violence Against Violence, that will come out with Daniel Zizej did the art.
Okay.
It's about two. I don't know if you're familiar with straight edge, like the hardcore scene.
Mm-mm.
There's like a straight edge in the punk hardcore scene where people that didn't like drink or do drugs or no promiscuity, and then it turned into hardline straight edge, where it was sort of like eco terrorism, where they would beat the shit out of drug dealers, burn down mink farms, blow up meat
Okay.
lockers. It's they got really extreme, and it's about two hardline straight edge kids that this terrible event happens, and they decide that they're going to kill every drug dealer in their small New England town.
Wow.
They're gonna kill their way to the top, because the easiest way to get rid of a drug problem is kill the dealers. So that one's that's a goodie.
Yeah. I'm.
I find I keep writing redemption stories.
I don't know if you're trying to say something or not, but,
Yeah.
but
Um, but yeah, no, just stand still. I
yep.
think next issue comes out September 25th, so we're right on track. It gets pretty haywire. Then we let off the brakes for like an issue, and then we ramp it up again. We give you a little reprieve. We let you catch your breath for 10 pages, and then we get right back into it.
I can't wait. Gang, if you're like I said, if you're listening or watching and you have not picked up Standstill yet, go do it. Order it at your shop, put it on your pull list. It's one issue in, and I'm loving it. It's a fun ride, and I think y'all need to hop on it with us.
Yeah, please buy thousands of copies.
Yes. All the copies. Well, Lee, thank you so much for taking some time to talk about comics with me.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. This is fun.
Where can people follow along with you, stay up to date, so they know when you're working on stuff, when you got stuff coming out?
Uh, just my Instagram. That's the spot. Just at Lee Lowridge. I don't really. I got hacked on Twitter a couple of years ago, and I haven't really tried to get back on because I think it's a fucking toilet.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So, well, gang, with that being said, hopefully you can find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out. Peace.
Later.